Showtime! The Capital G show starts right now.
What's up YouTube, Capital G here. So we're talking hand traps in this video, and I've always considered them to be the unknown defense that your opponent can't see coming. And I think that it really goes to show how important the element of surprise is in this game. Now, I've decided to list the top 10 hand traps of all time, in my personal opinion. And I've judged these on, a bunch of different variables, such as how good the card actually is, how long it has been good, how it has affected the competitive meta, and then a whole bunch of other variables that ain't nobody got time to listen to. So without further ado, this is the top 10 hand traps of all time, the Yugioh Hierarchy. Number 10, Flying C. So Flying C is one of the more unique cards on this list because it completely takes away a summoning mechanic from your opponent, and because unlike every other hand trap nearly, this guy summons himself but to your opponent's side of the field, which actually became very relevant the second that Burning Abyss were released, because this guy basically acts as a continuous form of Trigotiya against that deck. And what makes Flying C even more noteworthy is the fact that if you're skillful, you can pretty much make your opponent waste their battle phase to get rid of this card, and if you're setting monsters, it can be a really long day for your opponent. Number 9, Meister. So Meister is pretty much the Dp-Ygo alternative for players who like a sizable body attached to their hand traps. Negating effects that trigger in the graveyard will always be a valuable resource in this game, but when you can do it in the damage step, well, then my hands are tied. I pretty much had to add the card to the list. I also felt like I had to give Meister bonus points because it's such a solid card even when you're not using it as a hand trap. It's dark, level 4, 1700 attack, which can still get it in. And if you summon it via revival card like Soul Charge or Call of the Haunted, you can easily go into an XC. So this is one of those cards where it is really multi-purpose. Number 8, Swift Scarecrow. So there are many cards like Scarecrow, but what truly sets this guy apart when it comes to protecting your life points is just how difficult it actually is to stop this card. It doesn't need to hit the graveyard, it isn't actually summoned, it just needs to be discarded and your life points are safe from attack for an entire turn. There's no fuss, no mess. Simply put, it is just a fantastic card that's going to help you out in any dire situation. Number 7, Battle Fader. Probably the best at what it does. Battle Fader not only ends your opponent's battle phase without you having to take any damage, but it actually gives you field presence as well. Because of this, it's pretty much been a staple in Monarch variants since its release, easily giving you fodder for tribute summons or enemy control or whatever you see fit that you need. The only downside I would say that Battle Fader has is the 0 defense occasionally will get you in some trouble if your opponent can put a monster on board that actually has a piercing effect, but outside of that, no real downside to this card. Number 6, Dp-Ygo. We actually went years without playing this little guy, and many forgot how good a simple nope is to your opponent when they desperately need to get something out of the graveyard. We all know the game of Yu-Gi-Oh is littered with ways to summon monsters back from the grave, whether it's a trap, Call of the Haunted, a spell, Booge Incarnation, or a monster effect, all the dragon rulers. Dp-Ygo shuts all of these down, and even at its worst, Dp-Ygo does let you banish a monster from your opponent's graveyard, anything important in there that they may be using to set up a play. Again, you can't drop Judgment Dragon if you only have 3 names, right? Number 5, Trigotiya. So I actually struggled as to where to put Trigotiya on this list because in my personal opinion, Trag is probably the most skillful card on the entire list, and it's the one with the most potential. After all, the stats are completely determined by the player who summons it, and it can change its level at any time that it wants. Not to mention that with Trag, you can synchro and you can exceed with the card because it can change its level so often, and it also has that really nifty built-in snatch steal effect. Trag might not offer the instant gratification as some of the other cards do, but I would say that the possibilities of Trigotiya are near endless. Number 4, Effect Veiler. So a friend of mine once said that Maxie is like suggesting to your opponent to stop, and Effect Veiler is straight up telling them to stop. Effect Veiler is the definitive play stopping card on this list. If your opponent has a monster effect that's a problem for you, you Veiler it and it flat out shuts the play down. And the fact that she's also a tuner, I think, has historically been relevant, especially in a post-Soul Charge world. If you could use Effect Veiler in the battle phase, it may have been number 1 on this list. Number 2, Maxie. So I think that it is pretty much public knowledge at this point that I personally love this card, but I'll be the first to admit, in a lot of cases, Maxie can be straight up playing with fire, and sometimes you're gonna get burned. I say that because Maxie is the only card on this list that gives your opponent to weigh risk versus reward, and oddly enough, it kind of puts you in a situation where based on your opponent's playstyle can pretty much dictate how good this card is in general. The reason I rank Maxie so highly is for one sole reason. It is the only hand trap that gives you the ability to draw other hand traps during the turn that you use it. Number 2, Honest. So Honest was definitely a game changer. Before Light of Destruction came out, we didn't have anything remotely similar to this card. Something that could be played from the hand and would protect your monster from battle for the entire turn on both players' turns. Not just that, but it would kill my opponent's monster at the same time, inflict battle damage. I mean, that's just too good. That's basically a triple threat, and the fact that they gave this guy very respectable stats and a pretty useful on-field effect just took the card to legendary status in my book. Honorable mentions include Ghost Trick Jack Frost and Droll and Lockbird, and finally number 1, Gores, the Emissary of Darkness. So there are a lot of powerful hand traps in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, but it is not an overstatement in the least to say that no hand trap, and I mean no hand trap, can swing the tide of a duel like Gores can, with an incredibly powerful 2700 attack that actually summons another monster in addition to himself. This card is just insane. Like, you know a card is powerful when it literally changes the way that we conduct our battle phase and attacks just by its existence. A properly timed Gores drop can easily lead to victory all by his lonesome. So let me know what you guys think. Were there any cards that I missed out? If you have any ideas for any episodes of the Yugioh Hierarchy, any top 10 lists that you'd like me to create, leave that in the comment section below. I think since people like the Yugioh Hierarchy, I think we'll do this about once a week. I think that's a pretty good time frame, and hopefully you guys will like that. Thank you for watching. As always, subscribing makes life happy.